Hey guys, Chris from Provo Beast Audio Installation, and in today's install, we're replacing the factory doubled in on this 2018 Honda Civic. Now in this install, we're going to show you how to remove the factory radio. We'll head over to the bench, show the new radio we're installing, including the dash kit and wiring harness adapter. We'll come back here to get everything installed. Let's get started. Now, before we dive into things, a couple of things to note. This trim level Civic is the LX model. Now, we have a video already of a radio install on this Civic in this generation, but it's the non-LX, which basically is every other trim, and it uses a totally different install kit. The LX is the exception to the rule. Well, it has a different style radio configuration and heating and air configuration, and so it takes a different kit and a different wiring harness. If you do not have the LX, you'll have to use the other video, and we'll link that video in the description of this one. To get started here, we got to get this factory radio on out. There's no CD drive or anything, so you can't forget your CDs. There are two pieces here that need to come out, two trim pieces. We have a vinyl panel tool that'll help us remove these pieces. You can usually start here at the very back, and what we're going to do is just carefully pry these up to pop these clips out, just like so. There's a couple of clips here on the back. Once those are removed, we can pop out our heating and air controls. Now you can disconnect those pretty easily. Now mind you, we have our airbag light here. So with this disconnected, we do not want to turn on the key whatsoever. Doing so may trigger the airbag light on the dash. Next here, you're going to have two screws holding in the bottom of the radio. With those two screws out, everything else is held on with clips. Just go ahead and give it a tug. Now this harness here is connected to a bracket to the radio. What we like to do is just squeeze in that little bracket here using a screwdriver or something like that, so we can unclip that little harness just to get it free. Radio comes out. Disconnect your harnesses back behind the radio. Okay, with all our harnesses disconnected, like I said, you just push in the tab, the harness comes free. We can set our factory radio off to the side. At this point, let's head over to the bench to show you the parts that we're going to need for our install. Alright, so here at the bench. Now the parts that we're using in today's install, first and foremost, is the radio that we've chosen to go with. It's this Pioneer MVH AV251BT. Now to accommodate this in the factory location, we do need a bit of parts and adapters. The dash kit for the LX trim only, 2016 up, is the Metra 95-7812B. Again, this is for the LX only. If you have anything outside the LX, you need the other video. Wiring kit wise is the Access XSVI 1731 nav. We need a steering wheel control module, which is the Access ASWC1. An antenna adapter, which is the Metra 40-HD11. And if you want to retain your factory USB, you need the Scosche TAUSB01B. That'll keep your factory USB connection working. Now, there's one last thing. In this radio, because of this specific trim, still has the same camera, backup camera, as all the other trims. On the radio, you'll notice you can change your view mode, and on the other dash kit and the other trims, you can do that digitally with the new LCD screen provided by the kit. Since we don't have an LCD screen, the camera's only going to default to the standard image for backing up, but there's two other digitally manipulated images of that camera, and you can get to it, and we're going to put in a toggle switch and show you how to easily set that up. Additionally here, because we're doing a Pioneer, we're doing a micro bypass. If you are interested in knowing what a micro bypass does for Pioneer Alpine, we can link that video also in the description. Okay, with that all out of the way, at this point what we're going to do is we're going to grab our wiring kit, and we're going to grab the harness that came with our Pioneer. Today we're going to be soldering our connections. If you don't know how to solder, you can use butt connectors or crimp caps. Just don't use wire nuts or twist and tape. It's just not designed for an automotive application. Alright, so we have prepped our harness. We pulled our access harness out of the box. This is a radio harness. We've stripped both ends. Now, for the most part, it's going to be color for color. However, it's never always going to be 100%. Always double check the function of the wire will match the function of the radio wire. Don't just assume the colors always match. For example, our reverse trigger wire on this one's going to be green-purple, but on our radio is purple-white. So always validate to ensure that you're connecting it correctly. We preloaded our wire with some heat shrink, so as those connections cool after soldering, we can shrink the tubes over that connection with a heat gun. Now, you also will have a 12-volt to 6-volt power adapter for your backup camera. And basically, because our factory camera is 6 volts, it'll convert that 12-volt power signal to 6 volts. Now, we're going to go ahead and make our connections, and we'll go over those connections for you so you can replicate them at home. Alright, so we went ahead and soldered our connections here. For the most part, about 90% of the time, it is color for color, especially your speaker wires, your power wire, ground, accessory, illumination. That's all going to be color for color. Now, our special connections, first connection here, before we cover any of the camera wiring, we went ahead and on our antenna adapter, we connected our solid blue, which is going to power the antenna circuit. We tied it into red. We also added an additional accessory wire because this thing puts out 10 amps. So in case we have to power anything else, we always do this, another accessory off. And then we have one more, which is going to this guy, which we'll talk about our 6-volt adapter in a moment. All our grounds here, we grounded our bypass, grounded our radio, we added an extra ground area, which we'll show you what it is for in a minute. We also grounded our 12-volt to 6-volt reducer as well for our camera. Our reverse gear trigger wire is purple-white on our radio, but on our Metra harness, it is green-purple. So that covers those basic connections. Now let's cover the camera. Now, a lot of feedback online is this camera harness doesn't work all that great. Well, there's a couple of tricks that you can do to make your camera a little bit more reliable with your new aftermarket radio. First thing is our instructions do tell us to power our camera and to trigger the radio off of your camera trigger wire, which is green-purple. The issue is this green-purple doesn't put out enough current, enough amperage to both trigger the radio to go in reverse and power a backup camera. So that's an issue on the Metra side. A way around that is on your camera 12-volt to 6-volt reducer, blue-white wires the 12-volt input. So instead of, as the instructions state, instead of connecting this to your reverse gear trigger wire, which is this green-purple, as the instructions state, there's not enough amperage. So instead, we're going to connect our blue-white wire into accessory. Basically, we're going to power the camera whenever the radio is on. The benefit also of doing this is we can use that camera anytime. Our radio has the feature we can peek upon the camera when we're going down the highway. We don't just have to be in reverse, which is super cool. So we're going to power a camera. Our 6-volt blue-white wire is going to go to our accessory. It's also tempting to connect the blue-white wire of this to the blue-white wire of the radio harness, but we don't need to do that. Black is ground. We just tie that into our ground as mentioned before. And then the output, 6-volt output, goes to our camera power 6-volt wire, which we just soldered into that. Secondly, also for our camera connection, our camera, like mentioned in the car, has 2 other modes. Besides like the fisheye, there's a wide angle, there's a narrow angle, there's 3 different video modes of our factory camera. Is only going to default to one of them. And if you don't enable the other 2, you're missing out on additional camera factory features that you had with your OEM radio. So we found a way around that, which is pretty cool. This is our camera harness plug, and we found 2 extra wires that pin in this. We grabbed one of these guys. It's a Toyota harness that we have in our stock. We pulled out 2 pins using a deep pinning tool. We popped it in these 2 slots here. When we're in the car, this will make a lot more sense, but there's 2 wires in the factory camera harness that's not pinned here. And if we ground this one or that one, it'll actually change the image of our backup camera. So we can essentially, if we apply ground here, it'll change the image to that view. If we apply ground here, it'll change an image to that view. Or if we don't apply ground to either one of those, it'll default to the third image. Now, if you don't have pins, anything left over, which the majority of you watching won't, you can modify the OEM harness. We'll show you where to tap into. You can add 2 T-taps, and basically what we're going to do is grab this rocker switch. We're going to add our extra ground to that center pole here, and then one will go to one, brown will go to the other, and in the center position it'll default to whatever camera angle it's set to. But if we set it to 1, it'll apply ground to this side, and it'll ground that one wire, changing the OEM camera image. And same thing with the other way, we can get the other image because it'll apply ground to the other pole. We'll flash mount this in the car so it's nice and hidden, but it's still accessible. And that's how we're going to access the additional camera view features without any major modifications. With all that being said here, again, we can add more notes in the description for you, but we're going to lume our harness with some high temperature Tesa tape. Basically, this will be ready to go into the car. Alright, so we went ahead and loomed up our harness here, made it really nice and clean. Connection to the radio, connection to the vehicle here. Left our backup camera. This will go to the input. This is our steering wheel control input. That'll go to the steering wheel control input of the radio. If your radio doesn't have a 3.5 WR or steering wheel remote input, your ASWC1 will come with an adapter. This goes to like key 1, key 2, or one of these for Kenwood or JVC. So that's there and available just in case. Outside of that, that's looking good. Now there's 2 dongles that hang off when you plug in the radio. It's going to be one or the other depending on the brand of radio. For Pioneer, it was E2 for us, but it could be E1. So if your steering wheel controls are not working, you're going to have to do one versus the other. So you'll have to just play with it based on the brand you're installing in your vehicle. Like I mentioned before, for a camera harness, here's our switch that will flush mount. So obviously we'll cut a hole and we'll flush mount this in a nice and conspicuous spot. We got everything zip tied nice and clean. So we're done with our harness here. We can set this off to the side. Let's grab our dash kit here. So here's our dash kit. It's pretty simple assembly. Now you'll notice that these are only keyed one way, so you know which side they connect into. Like that. Then the other one will go on the other side here. And then what we'll do is we'll get our radio mounted in, and then we'll have to put on the clips included with the kit to the bracket itself. Alright, so we got our dash kit on, all looking nice and clean here, got our clips on. At this point of time, we need to grab our USB adapter, but with our radio and harness done, let's head to the car to start getting everything installed. Alright, so we're here in the car. Now, we're ready to start getting everything installed, but I wanted to show you some of the backup camera information that we talked about on the bench. That 2-way switch, I just went ahead and flush mounted it right there. It's, barely noticeable, so even if you remove that, nobody's going to know that there's a hole there, but it's easily accessible in case we want to switch our viewpoint. Additionally here, if we grab our backup camera harness, this pink and this yellow wire right here, those are our 2 other viewpoint triggers, and they are ground triggers, hence why we're going to ground either the pink or the yellow, and why we added those pins on the other side. Now, if you don't have those pins, you can use a T-tap to tap into the pink or this yellow wire and throw in that switch to ground. But at this time, we're ready to go ahead and get everything installed. Got our USB connected to the USB wire here. Let's go ahead and start getting our harness attached. Camera connected. Again, that's why we pin these wires, is because they align with the pink and the yellow that we talked about. Let's grab our antenna wire. That connects in as well. Let's connect all our harnesses to the radio here. Main harness. Video cable for a backup camera. Now our aux looking jack, but it's not an aux, it's the WR or steering wheel control remote input. Connect our USB. Let's go ahead now connect our 2-way switch here. We have a nice little long harness. Okay, let's go ahead and tuck everything into the dash now. Now we have our heating and air controls and airbag light switch just so we can test everything. Let's make sure it works before we button everything up. Now programming here, it should just all auto program. Steering wheel volume controls, again, you probably want to test that before you seat the radio, whether you switch that little harness to E1 or E2. Like I said, for our Pioneer we needed E2. It's all self-programming. It may take a moment for it all to program itself. There we are, so it looks like it's working. So we got our radio just in temporarily. You can see how we made our connections there. Center is ground, and then the other two viewpoints are left and right. You can get to it. So nice thing is, because we wired our camera off of accessory versus just a reverse gear signal, if we turn on the camera, we'll switch our camera switch here underneath. There's one, and there's the other. We'll keep it in the center because that's what it defaults to. The reverse, working great. Dimmer works great. Everything is working as intended. Steering wheel volume controls work as well. Let's go ahead and finish reassembling the radio. So that's about it for this install. This worked out great. I love the option to switch between the cameras. Kept all the factory features while adding a new aftermarket radio with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. If you have any questions on what we did here, go ahead and post a comment below. And if you like any of the parts that we use, we'll link them in the description as well. We also did front speakers, rear speakers. We've done all kinds of other installs on this Civic generation. So if you want to see any of those videos, we'll also link those in the description of this video. Thanks again for watching. Be sure to hit the like button if you liked what you saw. And don't forget to subscribe. We post great content on the channel all the time. We'll see you in the next video.